In the sweltering summer of 2006, the small Mississippi town of Weldon Springs moved at the pace of tradition. It was the kind of place where the courthouse stood tall in the center of town, where everybody knew your last name, and where whispers moved faster than the law. Marcus Tillman, 29, was no stranger to the town. Born and raised in Weldon Springs, Marcus had a reputation for being dependable. He worked as a full-time mechanic at JR's auto and diesel shop, and on weekends he volunteered at a local church mentoring troubled teens, most of them young black boys who reminded him too much of himself. Marcus had been on the straight and narrow for years after a couple of minor run-ins during his teenage days, nothing more than youthful recklessness. But that didn't matter in Weldon Springs. Not when your skin color determined how far your past followed you. On July 14, 2006, Marcus was driving home from work late at night when he was pulled over by Deputy Carter Lyle, a known hardliner with a questionable disciplinary history. The reason? A broken taillight. The stop lasted almost 40 minutes. Marcus was told to step out of the car and a search was conducted. No warrant, no consent. The deputy claimed he found a bag of white powder under the driver's seat. Marcus was arrested on the spot. Marcus was booked into the Weldon County Jail that night. The official charge was possession with intent to distribute narcotics, a Class A felony in Mississippi. He maintained his innocence, demanded testing of the substance, and asked for an attorney. Instead, he was assigned a public defender, Gary Holmes, a middle-aged lawyer juggling 47 active cases at the time and under the thumb of the local judicial system. Marcus's case landed on the docket of Judge Halford Hal Reeves, a man often described as stern but fair by his peers, but whispered about in barbershops and church halls across town. Reeves came from a legacy of privilege, the son of a state senator, the grandson of a plantation owner, and a judge for over 19 years. His court had a 90% conviction rate, and his sentencing record showed a disturbing pattern. Black defendants received, on average, 2.3 times longer sentences than white defendants for similar charges. Despite the lack of lab tests, body cam footage, or reliable witness testimony, the trial proceeded just 7 weeks later. Marcus's lawyer didn't call a single witness. The supposed evidence was never independently verified, and the powder, later suspected to be crushed aspirin, was accepted without question. The jury was all white. The trial lasted just 2 days. Marcus Tillman was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. His mother collapsed in the courtroom. His sister, Deja Tillman, screamed, "You know he didn't do this." Judge Reeves didn't flinch. Deja Tillman, 31 at the time, was a social worker based in Jackson, and she wasn't one to accept injustice. Not for a client, and especially not for her only brother. She knew Marcus. She knew his habits, his past, his growth. Something didn't add up. So she started asking questions. Her first stop was the courthouse, where she requested the official trial transcripts. But the court clerk delayed her request for over a month. When she finally received the documents, she noticed something strange. Key objections made by Marcus's lawyer were omitted, and a segment of cross-examination, one that would have challenged the deputy's credibility, was missing entirely. That was Deja's first clue. She filed a Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) request to obtain the police report, arrest documents, and lab test results. What she got back was even more disturbing. The lab tests had never been completed. In fact, the evidence had been destroyed just 2 weeks after Marcus's sentencing, an unusual violation of state policy. Deja brought this to the Mississippi Innocence Project. With the help of investigative journalist Kyle Merriman, the two began to trace a web of questionable rulings connected to Judge Reeves. It turned out Marcus wasn't the first, and wouldn't have been the last. Merriman's reporting uncovered a hidden conflict of interest. Judge Reeves owned shares in Weststone Corrections Incorporated, a private prison company with contracts in Mississippi. Records showed that between 2002 and 2009, Over 62% of inmates sent to Westone from Weldon County came directly from Reeves's courtroom. Even more damning, whistleblowers from inside the courthouse revealed that Reeves regularly altered transcripts, pressured public defenders to not push too hard, and directed bailiffs to intimidate jurors during breaks. With mounting evidence, the FBI quietly opened an investigation. And in March of 2012, they executed a sealed indictment against Judge Halford Reeves. He was arrested at his country club. In 2014, Reeves went to trial, this time as the defendant. The courtroom was packed. Deja sat in the front row every day. Testimony revealed that Reeves had conspired with at least 2 deputies, including Carter Lyle, to target young black men for arrest. In exchange, the deputies received bonuses from a slush fund tied to court fees and private prison kickbacks. The judge was found guilty on 17 counts of corruption, abuse of power, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison, but served only 5 years due to health issues. Marcus Tillman was exonerated in 2015, after spending 8 years behind bars for a crime that never occurred. He walked out of prison to a crowd of supporters and journalists. His first stop was his mother's grave. She had died the year before, her heart broken from the injustice. Marcus never fully recovered. Years of trauma and lost time weighed heavy. But he turned his pain into purpose. He founded No Chains Initiative, a nonprofit focused on helping the wrongfully convicted reintegrate into society. The group now advocates for transparency in judicial systems across the South. Deja continues to work in social justice and criminal reform, often speaking publicly about her brother's case. As for Judge Halford Reeves, he now lives quietly in a gated community in Florida, having never publicly apologized. In a country where justice is supposed to be blind, this story reminds us that the system can see color, and sometimes it chooses to look away. But when ordinary people like Deja Tillman rise, they turn the tide. One truth at a time.